My God, he body slammed Viscera like it was nothing.
When he dances, it was like the moon landing. And now Triple H is really scared. Welcome to another edition of Tales from the Attitude Era.
Woo! Oh, that's not Attitude Era. Sorry.
It's every
the
era.
Ric Flair woo. Okay. Now it's whenever, like, I think in baseball in Comerica Park, if someone gets like a double, there's a woo, or no, a walk. There's a woo. It's just a drop in every major league stadium. I wonder if he makes any money off that.
If you can, he will. I'll tell you that much. I get Instagram ads for knockoff Viagra from him. Like, hey, let me tell you what. If you're paying too much for Viagra, this is Ric Flair here to tell you could be paying as low as 2 cents for,
Oh yeah, he's got some amazing ones out there. I saw one. I can't remember. It's like from some like Four Top in some kind of sports bar somewhere off to the side. The noise was terrible, and he's like on a cell phone doing like, "Let me tell you something about someone's windows" or something. Just like, just can it seemed like we'll give you $1,500. Just do it at the bar now on the phone. All right,
we're coming in hot to kick this episode off. It's Rob Pasbani here, joined as always by former WWE head writer Tommy Blacha. We're on the road to this epic, infamous McMahon Helmsley wedding.
Yes.
The week before.
Well, it's the McMahon test wedding.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry. Pardon.
Yeah.
The McMahon Martin wedding.
Yes.
Yes. Spoilers.
Stephanie Andrew wedding.
Spoilers. Yes.
Yeah.
And this is a very, very fun edition of the show. You could tell this was like a in-between episode, and the reason why is because this might have been the most amount of match time since we started doing the show. Like, these were much longer matches, less in the way of storyline, mic time, more in the way of action in the ring, because all the storyline you're saving, I'm assuming, for next week.
Right. Yeah. And, and basically it was a weird one where I got to like go. So we went to this town. It was in Buffalo. And then part of it was like Vince has to go to jail. So we drove to whatever the name of that town was, Lackawanna, New York, I think it was. So that kind of ate up a bunch of time. I think everyone was like, what do we do? Vince is gone. And drove with Vince to this town in a suburb of Buffalo and used their jail and stuff, which was fun. And then the whole town came out. It was odd. I don't know how they hooked up with these people, but I remember going to their jail and literally the mayor and the chief of police were there and some people. And then Vince was like signing autographs. And then the actual mayor of the town or the chief of police, so we were there like, and it was such a simple shoot. It was like, yeah, we're going to use real cops, put Vince in jail and get his, mug shot, which I have. Look at that.
No, looks great. Oh, so those were the actual...
Yeah, this was the actual mugshot. I had it in like a backpack for like 15 years. I didn't, I just put it in there, and then we were gonna maybe use it. We, they just had the him taking the picture, and then it was like 15 years later. I was going through this old backpack. I was gonna take it to Goodwill, and I was like, "What's in here?" And like, oh, holy shit! Pretty good.
Yeah, I really enjoyed those bits. So I'm assuming. Like you said, took the whole afternoon. Was it just you and Vince? Did anybody else come with you guys?
I can't remember. Yeah, but it was as far as like creative, it was just me and him. But there was just like really nothing to do. It was just like, okay, you're putting in the jail cell, and then part of the bit was like, it's like, oh, you can order matches from jail, like like a. like a mafia chief being in jail, and like that was like the bit. And
yeah, so I was gonna say, like, how long before the show did you come up with this idea? Like, was this over the weekend? Like in Stanford the week before?
I think it was generally how it would work. You'd come back and we'd have like a travel day, and then I would like get in touch with Gewurz over the weekend and just have like a bunch of ideas. But that was always a running thing. Like in this time period was like, cops get called, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We're using that. So it was another thing like, okay, Vince gets, however it came out. Frankly, like everything, it's always the same answer. It was like Gewurtz and I, whoever, like, here's the half a dozen or more ideas, and then wait until, the 11th hour, and then, go over them, and then no, yes, or, until it gets like approved. So everything gets, you kind of give a day of rest, and then you just come up with a bunch of ideas. So it's always the same,
Right, because someone had to scout the jail for you guys, right? You had to find it and get the approval. And
again, the machine. It just, the approval, it happens. In fact, what was funny is the chief of police of this town. And again, you just go to the office, meaning like the office on the road or whatever. You just put it out there. We need an ambulance to blow up. And then like, here's the ambulance. I would just like order stuff. It was like magic. It was unbelievable. But so when we went to this town, and again, you got to realize the WWF, WWE had so many relationships for decades with arenas and towns and what have you. So however this relationship was, I don't know, but I do know the chief of police of this town told me, took to the side as we were filming. He goes, yeah, you guys want to come back? Anything you need, you can do it, And he said, and then he said the weirdest thing. He goes, this is a political town. So anything you need. And I was like, what does that mean?
What?
Yeah. I kind of got the feeling like, hey,
next time Ted Turner's in town, anything you need.
Yeah. Or I just killed a prostitute. Well, don't worry, we'll cover it up, and you get, here's some tickets. I don't know. That's what he said. This is a political town, so anything you need. Like, oh, I guess so. I guess
heroin. Got heroin.
I guess I could drive 130 miles through Lackawanna. Hey, I'm the guy that remember but it was kind of funny. It was a lot of like cops' families down there. They're getting autographs and stuff. Even you see that bit, and it was a nasty jail cell too. It was like, but it was that was a fun little like side trip, and Vince was often like super just cordial on those things. It was like, okay, we're gonna do this, and I think for the most part, it was pretty good. Everyone felt like, oh, he's off doing this. So this took, I don't know, 2-3 hours. Race back and see how things work out. It's funny reliving this stuff, and you ask a lot of questions, and I'm like, I don't know.
Well, we have the Observer to help a little bit. We have something with the Steve Austin stuff. We'll talk about it a little later. So were you back for the start of the show?
Certainly. Yeah, certainly. Yeah.
So I'm wondering.
So we probably have like a production meeting. Usually was about 10 a.m. So we'd like meet before. Gewurtz and I would have like breakfast with Vince wherever he was, and and Shane and Stephanie and whoever, usually about 7 or 8, make way to the arena. 10 a.m. usually was the production meeting, and then peel off. So we probably like split around 11 or noon to the jail, came back by 3 or 4, something of that nature.
Oh, okay. So plenty of time.
Yeah.
I'm wondering, like, so the show's starting, the fireworks are going off, the epic, iconic intro.
Literally.
Yeah. How does it feel like being in Gorilla or wherever you're standing as you're hearing that intro? Is it exciting? Is it scary? Is it a little bit of everything?
It's a little bit of everything. Sure, it's exciting. It's always exciting. It's kind of a relief to get it going. You know what I mean? Because now instead of like, okay, what are we going to do with this? Okay, got to do this pre-tape, whatever. Once it's on, it's on. And, that was the great thing about live TV is like, even if things were going to fuck up, it was going to take care of itself. It was going to be done. And there's nothing like live. Because the whole show's done. It's not edit. You don't have to edit it. You don't have to second guess things. Even with SmackDown, even being live to tape, there was always like, well, we can edit that in or pull that up, or just everyone was like just up on their game more because it was live. It was like just human nature to be like sometimes like SmackDown or whatever. There's like a little bit of a, oh, we can take care of that or whatever. But it was just, so once it was going, and so it was just exhilarating, fun, and and depends on which. Some things were like, oh, this is going to be great. Some things were like, oh God, fingers crossed, I hope this doesn't fuck up. So depending on what have you, but for the most part, it was just like, here we go. It was like a sporting event. Like once it's on, and then it's over. Like whew. So,
were you sitting at Gorilla, like right behind the entrance? Is that where you usually sit?
Depends, because often there would be, you might be doing some kind of taped thing during a show. Like I said, I told about like the Baltimore experience with one of Schwarzenegger's PR people, what you had to do. Or let me tell this story, and I don't remember where this happened. So sometimes you might be doing a tape, right? Doing a tape segment. Now, this tape segment might be in between match 3 and 4, right? But we're going to take it to the truck and then play it as if it's like opening up match 7 or something, right? So you have to wait because you might hear like the pyro, or you might hear the music of someone's match. And you're kind of faking it, like going like, we're going to film this here. We're going to take it to the truck, and it's going to be, you know, it's going to lead into segment 7 as if it's live. So you're kind of waiting for like the music to go off, and then you do your segment. But then if a match ends and the next entrance music comes and bleeds in, it'll fuck your segment, right? Meaning like, oh, I can hear the under so-and-so's music. It ruins it. So we were doing something somewhere, something physical, where it was like going to be a chair shot or something back there. And there was a stage guy, there. And he was like with the truck, and we were saying, waiting for like, okay, when tell us when the next entrance music comes in, give us a warning, because the segment has to like be over. So they do this like physical thing, and it's going a little long, and Vince is involved, and I can't remember who. I think it was like Big Show or someone. And all of a sudden the music comes in for someone's, entrance music. And everyone there is like, oh, fuck, this just ruined the segment. You know what I mean? Ruined the tape. And so it was someone had like looked at this guy like, I got to take another chair shot because the fucking music bled into this. And this guy was so fucking like, it was almost like the color left his face. I can't remember his name. And Vince like took his headphones off and like, God damn it. And he got in with it. I'll take over. Got him with the truck. Okay. So we had to do it again. And then literally take the tape that was in a beta cam, which is in a camera, to the truck and have them like look at it and then, bleed it in before the segment. And so this guy was just fucking shell shocked and was like, oh God. And he just fucking got his ass chewed by Vince. But this at the time, what made me like Vince for what he did, because sometimes you'd be in a situation like that in a movie set or something, and someone like just fired, high pressure. The next show we were at, the production meeting, and a lot of times crew guys were in there. Vince said like, all right, we're going to have a thing here. And if, let's say the guy's name was Joe, if Joe can have his shit together, and, but my point being like, he went to the guy after and he came and he goes, look, when you got those things on, I know there's a lot of big wrestlers and stuff, but you're God when you have that on, and you got to cut through it, and you got to say, it's not ready. You know what I mean? You can't be intimidated. And the guy's like, all right. Then the next day, the guy's like there, and he busts his ass and like, if Joe can have his shit together. So my point being like, he kind of like, empowered the guy. Sure, he chewed his ass. Sure this, but he didn't fire him. He said like, right. Yeah, got yelled at. You fucking felt like, oh, he was pulling cable later. But he went and got him after the show. He's like, what's that guy's name? He came into the office, and then he told him, damn it, you gotta be on this. So I like that, you know what I mean? I could see in a movie set just like, get rid of them, they're gone. You know what I mean? But it wasn't like that. So this guy now has a badge of honor. He's walking around like, fuck, you got your ass chewed by Vince. And now he knows better than anyone, like next time, like that's not going to happen. So, so that's, so as far as where I stood, it was sometimes peeking through the curtain, sometimes doing other stuff. Like I said, with, I'm at Beaver Stadium in Penn State with Jericho, coming back, like, or so it, depending on what you're doing. So you're everywhere. So a lot of times, under the stage, by gorilla, peeking through the curtain, any number of things. Sometimes down a weird hallway, hiding, not near anything, sometimes, successful segment. Oh, gorilla position. Woo, something dicey. Oh, anvil cased around the corner. You never know.
All right, let's get into the show. So it kicks off with Shane and the Stooges wondering, where's Vince? We got to find Vince before he does something a little crazy.
Yeah.
And the intro hits, and the first match is Al Snow and Mankind against the Hollies. And this has a very natural setup. Hardcore takes the mic, and of course, this angle that you're running with the action figure or the dolls, as they call them, getting pulled from the Walmart shelves. It was a 2-pack of Al Snow and Hardcore Holly. So Holly takes the mic, and he's pissed. He said, I'm mad that my doll, the Hardcore Holly doll, is pulled off shelves, which means all Hardcore Holly fans will have a bad Christmas. What's Christmas without a Hardcore Holly doll?
Yeah.
And he gives the mic to Crash, and he says, it makes me sick.
Yeah. Just the gift that keeps on giving, as we reiterate the whole angle, that it was like, to me, remember just being like, oh, this parent-teacher council made a big deal of this Al Snow doll. It's just like, oh, it just fed us. You know what I mean? Like, yeah. Great for Al Snow. More, keep the gimmick alive, and then like, it's all great when you have something to say that leaks into something true, which was, it was been so hard to like contrive this whole thing, but since it was like real and in the news, it was just like great, like just natural and easy. And there we go.
Pretty basic match ends where Snow is setting up his finisher, and Crash hits him with the drop kick off the top rope to sneak in the pinfall. And now Snow is mad again. He's like, you're slowly kind of telling the story that he's about to snap and fall back into his psycho persona.
Right. Yeah. It's a great angle that unfortunately got squished by PG-13 and things that we'll explore later. What happened?
One thing I also noticed is Mankind is doing is making a concentrated effort to slow down a little bit and rely more on his comedy. He's kind of wearing looser clothing. He's being a little more silly. They're doing more comedy spots in the ring. Ultimately, I think this is a really smart move because we're at the tail end of Mick Foley's career, and I'm sure his body is broken down quite a bit.
Yeah, I don't know if that was ever, an issue ever, because it's just his mentality of like what he did, and and things I wasn't privy to anyway, and that's part of the allure of him is like whatever, but yeah, and just that he could do it, you know what I mean? It was like it really was a matter of like, this is working, go with this, you know what I mean? Before we need to exhaust his, and he did come out of like his Mankind insane Hell in the Cell and all this, and it's like, yeah, like I said, which made him, to me, the MVP of the writing team for all time. Humor, heat, madness, bumps, anything that was working, you just get more out of that sponge. The book, yeah.
He referenced the book a little later too. We'll get to that. We see DX arriving in a limo, very cinema verite here, with the camera in the passenger seat in the front and through the window. And I feel like they would never shoot something like this today because there was virtually no lighting. You're just using the natural light from the limo. But I thought this looked really cool as like kind of like a gangster scene, like they're kind of modern 90s gangsters.
I couldn't agree more. In fact, I loved like we talked about, even when I think they stepped down some of the lighting when they had to cover up potentially who hit Austin in backstage in Detroit, and just that camera quickly following the action, it was just like, I think it was interesting. I think, in my opinion, sometimes as years went on, it got a little too staged, like make sure everything, the lighting's well, and you know what I mean? And too much like, set dressing or whatever. This was always nasty. You're always in the bowels of arenas. What's happening? And I think you're exactly right too. It's just like, and I don't think a lot of that was necessarily by design. It was more just serendipity of like, okay, we'll get him in the limo, and then like, oh, we ain't got much light, this will work, and it all works, and it really adds to that kind of like edgy flavor, which look at ECW, look how they were filming shit, it was just so like off the cuff and kind of like nasty. And I'm sure they didn't have the same kind of beta cams or whatever they did, but it was like, yeah, there's that grittiness to like being in the bowels of an arena and what have you. So I agree.
So It's basically just a setup for what's going to happen later. Triple H says that Vince is blowing a gasket, and Billy Gunn, who is really leaning into the heel persona this week, wonders if it's because Gunn broke Vince's future son-in-law's nose, and then he joked that he made Test look like Triple H, which Triple H jokingly took offense to.
Yeah.
And then Triple H said, again, something you would never be able to say today, which is that if Steph got in his way, Triple H was going to do to Stephanie what they did to Test. That's assault, Triple H. She is not a contracted professional wrestler. You cannot hit her.
Yeah, I agree. Despicable. His actions were, and his words were despicable.
Backstage, Shane finally finds Vince. He's actually in the parking lot, sitting in a car with a bat.
Yeah.
And Shane is trying to talk some sense into Vince. Vince lets him know that he and Test have a match with the Outlaws, so they better get the hell inside.
Yeah. I mean, it was so fun writing this stuff, because you just felt like, I remember talking with Gewurz too, it was like, oh, it's like writing a mafia movie, but the DX is kind of like also like they're like the jocks from Revenge of the Nerds times 10 and violent. So it's like these weird things of like, it's like it all just worked. Yeah, and then like Vince is and you just had that confidence. You knew like, oh, Vince is in the parking lot with a bat. You just knew like, oh, that'll be great. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, just like, he's gonna lose it, and just him in that suit with a, it's just like, yeah, that'll work. That'll be great, easy.
Kurt Angle comes out, and of all of the Kurt Angle segments we've seen so far, this is without question the best one. He in as little as 3 appearances, he's figured it out.
He's figured it out, and he's ramped it up. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it's crazy. So he's coming out to the ring. I notice as he's, clapping fives with the audience, his mouth. I was reading his lips, and it looks like he's saying, "I want to be your champion" to each individual fan, which is such a great touch.
He is using his 3 eyes literally for his promos: intensity, integrity, and intelligence.
And before we get to this match, we get a live read from JR and the King. And they let us know that Raw is brought to you by the new video game WrestleMania 2000 on N64.
Mm-hmm.
It's brought to you by wavesmusic.com, which, believe it or not, does not exist anymore.
I'm shocked.
And at wavesmusic.com, you can get the Foo Fighters album, There's Nothing Left to Lose, on RCA Records, which was nice.
Yeah.
And finally, the WWF Slam Cam, which I'd like to spend a second talking about. I had to look this up. It looks incredible. And by incredible, I mean incredibly cheap. It's like a kid's digital camera. And keep in mind, this is from 1999. So you can only imagine the quality of the photos.
Right.
And I looked up. So essentially, it's a digital camera with proprietary software. And this cord, which isn't even a USB cord, there's like, you probably have to get a converter if you were to buy it today, to import these photos.
Sure. Well, yeah, you know what I mean? A lot of those cords that are almost the same that go into, there's a lot of like transfer things for digital photos, and who knows, but you have to remember, like, the smartphones didn't exist, and they weren't the things that monopolize all pictures and what have you. So, God bless the wrestling. Hey, wrestling and porno were really, it was always spearheaded technology in terms of like digitally and what have you. But especially WWF at the time, they had so many gimmicks going. I remember at the time I gave it to my fucking superintendent in my building in New York to get my apartment fixed. But it was Gewurz, and I got one, this like Steve Austin doll that was about this big, that was a CD-ROM, and if you remember at the time, there was so much fucking gimmickry in 1999 about like, download this, or there's a lot of 1-900 numbers and things like that, so you'd call, they would want to dole out this information. So this ridiculous Steve Austin doll, it was early, like you could plug it into the internet. It did have an interface with a cord, which I'm sure was some weird like this, like what's the cord? You could plug it into the internet and you could download different rants that would come out every 2 months. So it was really cutting edge of like, whoa, this thing can upload, which really the technology was you could have had, hey, you can put 10,000 rants in here. No, we're going to put 5 at a time and make these kids have, it was early subscription. It wasn't quite a subscription, but if you want to download these rants, and then the rants were ridiculous. And I know like Austin probably went in some recording studio. Like some of them were like, you got a computer, son? Well, let me tell you. It was like these strange rants, and it went nowhere because, you know, just things became obsolete so fast. But this reminds me of this slam cam. What can we get kids to buy that they have to then like continuously, get more stuff through the internet? That was the beginning of subscriptions and all this stuff. So, God bless them.
It's called the Steve Austin Internet Active Electronic Figure.
Yeah, what a name. Fucking terrible. Yeah.
And it connects to WWFwired.com.
Yeah. But I remember we got ones and we were like, hey, can you write some, promos for this? Or what do you think of it? And it's kind of like, God, it's fucking complicated. And, the parents are just going to be pissed. Like, what? I got to pay how much to get Steve Austin to say this time, like, oh yeah, I'm going to stomp a mud hole in your ass. Oh, what do I get in 2 more weeks? Like, it's just like, whoa, it was just crazy. So what did the slam cam, did it have some kind of, Matt thing?
So,
what was the proprietary software?
So it's a basic digital camera. And then the software is like it's almost like Instagram, like a very early version of Instagram filters, because you could add like jazzy effects that have nothing to do with wrestling, like a ripple, a blur, a blah, blah, blah. But then they also had a feature where it's Steve Austin stunning somebody and the face is cut out and you could put your face in there.
Nice. Yeah.
And then there's a feature where there's a ring and you could put 2 photos on either end of the ring. And we'll show an overlay here because the quality of the images is so bad, and it's not like they cut out the background of the photo, so it's just 2 squares in the middle of a poorly rendered 3D WWF ring.
Nice.
So it's phenomenal. It's great.
So even the face, if you're the victim getting stunned by Stone Cold Steve Austin, you'd line it up so it'd be like a whole overlay, and then you'd match up, and your friend would sit there, and you'd have to match his face in the circle, and then take the picture.
Right? Yeah. Well, you take the picture, and then it does, like, the overlay is above it, so you just have to kind of arrange the face so it's
right
somehow.
So it's a digital version of like what's at Coney Island. You stick your face through, and you got muscles.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, like you would get it in an arcade.
Brilliant.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Slam cam.
I kind of want it. You can get one on Etsy. You can get literally one on Etsy for $23. So if you look that up for our Western Heritage listeners.
Yeah. Western Heritage listeners. Oh, I love it. I want to go back to Kurt Angle's promo in the ring against Mark Henry, where he was like so good.
Exactly where
You saw like the potential of him, not only the potential, just realized immediately. So he told this story about how Mark Henry came in 18th place in this competition, and the camera just caught him, but he was so like astonished at how shitty that was. He actually dropped to his knees and he had this incredible facial, like 18th place, like he almost fainted, and he dropped to his knees and was like, what? He just was
disgusted.
Like, stuff like that was like, oh my God, he's feeling it. He's incredible. He's incredible.
Yeah, I love that. He went on this whole rant about how in the Olympic creed it states it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, but that you participate. But then he says, well, I won the gold for our country, but some of us that didn't pull through. He's asking for the good people of Buffalo to cheer for the person who brought home the gold medal and not the man who stayed out all night at a topless bar the night before he competed. Big pop for that.
Yeah.
Big pop for Mark Henry staying out. And Kurt Angle gets upset. No. You don't understand. He finished 18th place.
Yeah.
Now, Mark, if you followed my 3 simple sets of rules, intelligence, integrity, and intensity, already getting booed for the 3 eyes 1 week in, you would have placed first and not dead last. And Mark Henry, like, Popeyes up, gets very angry and storms the turnbuckle. They have a back and forth, quick match. Then we see another worldwide Phil side, but Dave Koechner is gone. There's a different person. 1 week. The sign distracts Mark Henry enough for Kurt to do a incredibly impressive over the head belly to belly suplex with the bridge for the win. That was really cool. What happened to Dave? Is he gone? Is Koechner gone? Is that it? Or was this just creating a world of protesters?
It was creating a world. I think when we have him on, we'll ask him, and I don't know if he appeared once after this or if he couldn't just make this date, because it was so fast when it was like, hey, start doing this character, you're in this city, you're in this city, you're in this city, but it was like creating a world, and then it went away. So
I see.
We'll get back to you.
DX finally arrives at the arena, and again, very cinematic here. Camera cuts to a shot of Vince rabid, like, oh, you want to play the game? Let's play the game. And he does the stunt of ramming into this limousine, and you can tell he does the stunt because after the first ram, it looks really not good. There's no second or third ram, but then there's complete chaos, and DX eventually escapes. This is an intense scene to shoot, and your second vehicular scene in as many weeks. How was it shooting this segment? Do you have any memories?
Yeah, it was a blast. And in fact, there was kind of like as usual, flying by the seat of your pants until, like, something bad happens. Like, my goodness, it's like, should there be a special thing in there? Like, you know what I mean? There was no stunt driver. There was no, like, should we put some, Vince is going to hit that car pretty hard. And I remember, I think Pat Patterson saying, like, oh, if you tell him he can only go 40, he's going to go 60 or whatever, and it was just like, okay, let's do it. And then then he goes berserk, and that's it. And also you're sitting there like, well, he's the boss of everything. So, okay.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Who's going to tell him no?
Right. If it was someone like, well, okay, we better watch this because this person's doing it. Okay, we better be careful for this. Like, oh, he's doing it. And then, like, you just knew, like, and in true wrestling fashion was a lot of like, okay, I'll come through here. Everything's subdued. Like, a lot of times you'll come through here and we'll do this, and we'll come, all right, got it. And then, like, all right, okay, let's do it. And then it just goes berserk, and it's just like, how exciting. And again, one take, do it, camera's shooting it. Just the whole ethos was, you're a news crew out and something crazy happens. Fucking get it. And you come back to the newsroom and you got it. And even if it shakes or whatever, you know what I mean? There was very little, kind of like, all right, I'm going to be here. And what's the shot? It was just like, these crews were great,
Yeah. I mean, it looked awesome. It looked intense. It looked, like you said, like an action.
It was.
Like a news crew filming an action movie.
Yeah.
Go to commercial, come back. Vince still rabid backstage, swinging a bat at DX's dressing room. Shane is trying to get him to calm down as we get back to the ring.
Yeah.
Godfather comes out. Buffalo has some very attractive women that you've hired to be his ladies of the night.
Mm-hmm.
And there's the
oh, you got tongue tied there, huh? Thinking about those Buffalo hoes there, huh? Yeah.
The Parent Television Council guy is there with a new sign, WWF equals porn, which Jerry Lawler is very angry about moments after he was just drooling over one of these hoes. And Jericho comes out, and I feel like this is almost like you're kind of trying to get Jericho his heat back in this match. Give him some mic time. Welcome to Raw is Jericho. Crowd still sings along. He's still very over. And says it's beneath him to be in the ring with the Godfather. He runs down the hose and says, get these tramps out of my arena, which is too much for the Godfather. So he attacks Jericho. Quick match. Action spills to the outside, and the hose attack Jericho, because of what he said earlier, no disqualification here because Tim White's discretion. I feel like he's kind of in the pocket of Godfather after all the lap dances he got.
You might think so. Yeah, that's definitely food for thought. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm surprised nobody brought that up, but I'll let it go. This is my conspiracy theory of the week here.
Right.
Anyway, after the hose attack Jericho, Godfather breaks it up, rolls Jericho into the ring. Jericho quickly jumps up, and as Godfather rolls in, Jericho gets the advantage, kicks him, sets him up, gets the lion salt, and the quick victory. Godfather is very upset.
Godfather could do the honors with this gimmick for a decade and be fine. And here he is again. Woo! He lost. Oh, well.
Yeah, and it doesn't exactly like he's the perfect person because he's threatening enough and he can take a loss and be just fine the next week. We'll have just as much heat next week.
It's a weird kind of heat. I call it sweet heat because it's not really heat. It's the hoe train. Everyone's happy.
Yeah.
He's not exactly a baby face. Like, it's just sweet
and it's
heat.
not like you said, like you're not setting him up for a world title run anytime soon.
Right.
So it's all right.
Yeah.
Backstage, the cops are here and Vince gets arrested. As soon as he's get put in the cuffs, DX leaves their dressing room and Triple H attacks a cuffed Vince.
Yeah.
He's a scumbag. No honor.
And this just worked. So it was one of those things too, where I just amazed, like, okay, again, camera, like following something like a news thing, following just, some crazy thing happened in the hallway, but it was just laid out perfectly. Like Triple H comes, like the shots are great. Triple H comes in, past the melee. There's a moment. He punches Vince in cuffs. It looks like, oh, you despicable asshole. And then the mayhem happens. And then there's another shot where he's down at the hallway at the other end. Like, it just, like, all the chaos, it, like, just tells the story. And then there's something that I found pretty funny was like, oh, my God, it's a man in handcuffs getting beaten. And Pat Patterson's there just standing there, but not helping Vince. And Vince is, like laying, and Pat Patterson's like, oh, but it just, it's like one take, and it's like, yeah, we saw everything, because even at its worst, not to say at its worst, but if there's just so much camera shaking, you can sell at least like, my God, as JR said, it's absolute chaos, and that would work. But this, like, just so many like little subtle things worked, for me. It just, it really looked like, it looked real, for lack of a better term, of like.
I feel like this feud is really intense. Like, it's really surprising because it's Vince McMahon. He's not an active wrestler, but like, you believe this is a real feud between these two entities.
Yeah, and everyone had to like speak to the fact that, like, okay, we got to ramp it up. My God, he's pushing your family downstairs. He's threatening your daughter. And I mean, you got to get it. It's like, like we said, it's like the mafia movie. Like, holy smokes, he's in the parking lot with a bat and no one can talk to him. It's like he's beyond reason, and so it had to be amped up like that. So
after the break, Vince is getting thrown in the cop car. He looks like Animal from the Muppets. He's just fuming.
Yeah.
Oh, he says, we're going to play the game. All right.
Yeah.
Before the next match, we learn there's a WWF spread in the new issue of Vanity Fair by photographer David LaChapelle. It looks really cool. I wasn't able to find the spread, but just another example of mainstream recognition for WWE. This is a big deal.
Oh, not only that, what was so funny about it was, like I said, things started happening. You started to realize, like, oh, this is getting big. Like I said, like the Lugs RV would show up and just pass out free, Lugs boots to anyone. There was always some off to the side, like, you'd have like photo shoot things, off to the side, or the video game things. There just seemed to be a lot more like side apparatus stuff with money, or there'd be like, certain, like I said, Lugs was a sponsor, so they wanted anyone to be wearing their product. Other products would come by. Like, there was just like a lot of swag, lots of stuff happening. So the David LaChapelle thing, for people that don't know, is a very famous fashion photographer. And this was a weird rub where, however it worked out, whoever worked it out, I don't know. So, and it was for, what magazine was it for?
Vanity Fair.
Vanity Fair. Huge, right? So, so this was happening during shows. So what would happen? So there was a whole area where David LaChapelle and these photographers, and this is like big money fashion people. So it was a lot of, like, oh, what's the apparatus over there? It wasn't cheap. It was like a lot of people with, a lot of cameras and like, holy smokes, what's happening there? And they would, set up like, okay, let's get Kane and get him into the back of the limo with a model. So they had their own models. They had their own setup for, their high fashion photography stuff. So it rivaled like the WWE setup. So there was a lot of like, oh, you got hair and makeup over here. There's our hair and makeup. It was like really fascinating as you're going to the show. And in fact, I always had a bit with Bob Holly, because there was like so there's a lot of photographers, and a couple of them were like these, obviously I would say like, everyone from the fashion side was very impressed. Like, oh my God, look at this. This is crazy. And they were like so happy to be like, look at these. And, so the idea of the shoot was like, oh, we're going to match a model with, wrestler. And one of them was like, got this like incredible model in the back of a limo with Kane. And Kane was, on his way to a match or after? That's like, cause it was so chaotic. And they'd be shooting them. And then, everyone was happy on the fashion side. Like, these are incredible photos. So there'd be like, what's going on? And there was this one guy just taking pictures, and everyone knew like they're going to be around. And he seemed like a very like kind of effeminate, gay man who was a fashion photographer, just kind of enthralled with like Bob Holly. Bob Holly was like sweaty after a match, and he came up and he went like, took a bunch of pictures, and Bob Holly looked at him, and he kind of giggled and went, oh, and then like ran away. And then I looked at Bob Holly, and then from then on, I would always see Bob Holly in subsequent weeks, like in the hallway or something. I would run up to him and go, ooh, snap, oh, and I would like run away. And but it was just like this weird, odd love fest that was like just happened, but it was so fast because people they would interact, but not that much. Like, oh. And obviously any wrestler would be like, yeah, I want to be in this, fashion shoot. Like, what's happening? And I don't know how much they would get side paid, but that was just the pace of things were just that insane. And it was like, what's happening now? Oh, what's happening over there? Like, holy shit. Cause they had a whole apparatus, and it was a really cool shoot when it came out, and like how many weeks later, and like, oh yeah, look in Vanity Fair. We got to talk about this, or we got to talk about that. And just so many side things were like happening all the time,
I was going to say that's also the benefit of WWE is when they get something big like this, they make sure to tell you about it on their own programming. Like you'll know about it.
Yeah. And that's what, and that's when mainstream, if you will, things started to take notice, like Vanity Fair. How is Vanity Fair going to mess with like wrestling, whatever. And then conceptually, and then it's like, hey, did you see these numbers? Oh my God. Do you know the top 10 shows of cable TV? Once people started looking at these numbers, like, oh, that makes everything go away, and run smoother in a way. One time Vince was on the cover of Newsweek magazine. Now Newsweek probably hardly exists now, but that back then it was a big deal. It was like Time magazine, Newsweek still. And he was on the cover one week, and we were at the airport, I think in New York, and I get a call from him, and he says, we're running a little late. It was him, Shane, and Stephanie, like, stop that plane. And I'm like, well, how do you fucking stop a plane? But I was determined to like, somehow I've got to like delay the plane, right? Quite literally. So I'm like, well, how do I do that? And there was a kiosk right across from the gate that had Newsweek magazine, and Vince was on the cover. And I remember going to I was like, hey, I've, some of my people, my boss has said is on his way, but he might be a little late. And the guy's like, well, we can't delay the thing. And I started to go like, really? I go, is there any way? I said, what if I give you like $500? I was like, because I was so determined to somehow impress them. I'm trying to bribe the guy, and he's like, I'm like, yeah, I'll go to the ATM right here. You know what I mean? If we could somehow, if there's anything we can do. And he's like, what? And I go, and then I pointed to the Newsweek magazine. I go, see, that's the guy who's coming. Right? He's a VIP. See, he's on the cover of Newsweek. And these fucking ticket people at the gate were just looking at me like, I've started to get to the point like, is this guy nuts? You know what I mean? And then I remember they were running up and like everyone was on the plane. I was like the last guy to wait to get on.
Right.
And, and they were there. And then I just made a big like fake show. I was like, yeah, I delayed it. but I didn't. But he was like, oh, great, but but that just goes to show you why people run
you
through
did
a brick
technically
wall.
delay it a little bit.
I actually didn't, because they said at this time we're closing the door. That's that.
Okay.
I literally was like, I'll go to the ATM. I'll give you, because I was so in the day. What would the WWF do? Here, I'll get Earl Hebner's silver briefcase. Open it up. What are you, 5, 6? You're
in the bubble.
Yes. So it worked, but it really, I didn't get any satisfaction over like delaying it. It was just like, you just got on the flight. It wasn't like I was making a joke. Yeah, I really delayed it. Whatever.
So then we have Dudleys versus Edge and Christian. This is the first time these teams are facing each other in what will eventually be a legendary feud and fun match. A lot of time they got for a match that really didn't have any sort of angle or attached storyline to it, just a match for match sake. And Christian gets on Edge's shoulders in a kind of a doomsday device scenario, except they use it to superplex Devon for the quick win.
Yeah. Good match.
We see Rock on screen for the first time. Huge pop. Everyone's wondering who's his mystery partner. He's facing Big Boss Man and Albert tonight, and he's allowed to pick a partner. And Mick Foley and Al Snow walk past him in the backstage area, and Foley says, "Nice shirt." And The Rock did not forget about what happened the last time these two interacted, which is that Mankind left him high and dry and made him lose the tag team titles. And he says, The Rock says he has nothing to say to Foley. Actually, he does have something to say. The Rock never threw your book in the trash. And he mentioned chapter 37 about the Royal Rumble and how it was The Rock that carried Mankind, and Mankind's eyes lit up because it means The Rock actually read his book, which he's very thankful for. And The Rock comes back and he asks who Al Snow is. He doesn't recognize Al Snow. Like, do you work here? Do you work in the building?
Yeah, amazing.
Al Snow is so upset. And all of this is just to do his wonderful catchphrase where he says that Al Snow should shove his mannequin head straight up his candy ass.
Yeah. And that's there's no better. That's just the best. Like, I'm going to tell you something. Who are you?
Yeah, like, that was great.
It's KO. First round KO.
Vince is getting booked at the police station. Now, like the rest of the show is all these bits that we were talking about earlier that you taped.
Right.
Like everything you expect when you get arrested. He's getting his fingerprints, eventually his mugshot. We see a graphic that it's 1 week from the wedding. And Stephanie is having her bridal shower. And I have to ask again, did you have any inkling of where the gimmick for the wedding was going this week? Or this was just
no?
You're still wasting time. All right. Yeah. All right. Still don't know. Okay, good. I have such fond memories of this bridal shower sketch. Moolah and especially Mae Young were unbelievable.
Yeah.
Stephanie's opening gifts. Mae presents their gift. And it's a set of handcuffs and like this BDSM skirt and top, and even a flog, which Linda McMahon grabs. She's like, "No, you're not. No daughter of mine will be flogging her husband."
Right. If I remember correctly, how a lot of this worked, which was so great, because I wasn't there for this shoot, but a lot of it just came out of like, obviously when Vince made the decree earlier, like, we got to have a wedding, weddings are always high ratings, soap operas, it's like, okay. And then like what comes out of it? Like, well, bachelor party, sure. You know what I mean? All these obvious things. And one was like, oh yeah, baby shower. So it was kind of like, you would literally say like, yeah, have a baby shower. And of course, yeah, Mae Young's got to give inappropriate gifts, like all like negligees and weird stuff. Oh, that's great. And then she's going to get, too drunk and make a scene. Got it. Like, that's like the extent of like, I think it would just be mentioned, and then it would be off and running with the crew and other people, and they would just do it. So it wasn't like I even like, wasn't even pen to paper. It was just those set pieces, if you will. Great.
Right. Let him go. Let him run.
It was like AI. The machine just did it. It was incredible.
It was so good. The extras looked like they're from the Mom Jeans SNL sketch. Like these friends of Stephanie's. They look like they're 10 years older than her.
Yeah. Well, and it could have, who knows? I have no idea. It could have been, Vince's executive assistants, friends, people from the office. You know what I mean? Or, because a lot of times it was like that. Oh, you want to be in it or whatever. Or it was, who knows? That's what we're getting to at this, like, tales from the Attitude Era. Who was? I don't know. So many things are like, I don't know. It just happened.
Back in the ring, we have a pretty fun, sort of a dream match of the moment. Jeff Hardy versus X-Pac.
Yeah.
Previous generation high flyer versus the next generation's high flyer. This was really fun. They gelled very well.
Although, yeah, you're right in what you said, but I'm wondering how far apart they are in age, because fucking X-Pac started pro wrestling at age like 15 or something. You know what I mean? He was a Lightning Kid and 1, 2, 3 kid. I mean, he's so young. It's unbelievable. So
he's 52, and I guess Jeff Hardy's 47. So they're only a few years. They're only 5 years apart.
Yeah. Well, he had already, like I said, X-Pac was like a 10-year veteran, at age 25. Which is crazy.
Well, I think Jeff Hardy also was like wrestling as a jobber for WWE at 15. Like he lied about his age to wrestle.
Right.
So
no, it's true, and he came in. Although X-Pac, his like down in Texas or whatever, he was like an established, mid-carder at 16 or 17. It was like crazy. He was crazy, like there's just no one like him. Yeah.
So Hardy had the match won with the Swanton Bomb, but then DX came out, interfered, distracted the ref. One thing led to another. X-Pac gets the win, which makes sense. He's higher on the totem pole. Then afterwards, the Hardys get attacked by DX. And while we don't see this on camera, it looked like Billy Gunn in character assaulted Terry. Like he runs up to her and like grabs her and does something to her. We don't see what, but she looked very upset.
Yes, and rightfully so. Despicable. Although one might say, when you sign up for that, you just might get hands put on you. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah, it's
true. Back at the party, Linda says she chartered a plane for a bachelorette party in Las Vegas. Just like, what do women do in Las? Like, what are they going to go to? Like the Men Down Under review at the Luxor?
I don't. You seem to have a big question mark, but yet you seem to have very specific information about the Australian Men Down Under. I don't know what the hell is that. Some kind of Australian Chippendales?
Yeah, exactly.
Sure, why not?
The Luxor.
Of course.
Think they had a reality show at one point.
You think, or you definitely know?
Well, I'm actually one of their Western Heritage members, so I get all the updates.
I'm a Chippendales Western Heritage member.
Yeah. Everyone is so excited that we're going to Vegas. May gets up and says, "Let's drink to Las Vegas," and then Moolah kicks her and she goes face first into the cake. I'm watching this all alone, and I burst out laughing in the year of our Lord 2024. This was so hilarious. May has full-on cake face. She tries to shove Moolah's face in the cake, but Moolah pushes her off, and then she gets Stephanie with all the cake. Stephanie finds this all very amusing.
These seasoned performers are just like, you just give them a little bit, like Mae Young's going to be like, okay, so you drink too much, you're embarrassing her. And then Moolah's like, nah, you're embarrassed. It's like watching like film stars from the 30s and 40s with that perfect delivery, just like to life, just like, they're just, I don't know.
The timing on the cake smash, I had to go back and watch it a few times. It was so good.
Yeah. They have just in comic timing of like physical timing of like, well, you do know I've been doing this for half a century. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
Big Show comes out. He has an open challenge. He is defending his title. Anybody backstage can get an opportunity. And I was thinking about it, and I feel like the Big Show character hasn't really been pushed these last 2 weeks. He's kind of, after winning the world title, sort of fell into the background because the main story at the moment, the main focus is this Triple H Vince feud. Like, Big Show hasn't even gotten mic time to celebrate his victory yet.
Yeah. Which is fine, because you want to do that a little. And also, it's not like he's being forgotten because he's fucking got a title.
He's there. Yeah.
And there's just not and frankly, there's just not enough real estate here and there, which is fine. Yeah. And there's no, because it's not like, if he was just kind of pushed off and didn't have a title or something, then it would seem weird and oh, here he is. What has he been doing? Whatever. You know what I mean? You can always there's the champion. So it's actually advantageous to be like, yeah, that's fine. Let him not worry about you for a few weeks.
So it's Big Show. Kane accepts the challenge, and I'm like, all right. It's a big boy match. Excited. They beat the crap out of each other, very stiff. Tori is out there, Kane's girlfriend, and she's on the top of the stage. And all of a sudden, Viscera comes out to essentially assault Tori. And bless her heart, she tries to run down the stage. She has high heels, and the stage has holes in it, so it's a little difficult for her. She has to run in slow motion.
Yeah.
But they make it down, and Vis is about to attack her. He grabs her, and in the ring, Kane gets the advantage, and he finally notices what's going on. And of course, Tori is much more important to him than this match.
Of course.
So he gets out of the ring and he attacks Big Vis, gets the count out. Big Show wins by count out. And then Kane eventually rolls Viscera in the ring, and Big Show scoops him up like he's a cruiserweight for a power slam.
Unbelievable.
To get a big pop and to get his heat, to get some sort of heat, since he's not getting a clean win over a Kane here. This was good. This did what it needed to do. Everyone got across, and you're even setting up a Viscera Big Show match where Viscera will clearly take the pinfall.
No, it is one of those little things that is all those details are smart. It's well, Kane, of course he could be a force for the title or whatever, but oh my goodness, his girlfriend was, attacked. Viscera is just a monster heel doing stupid shit. And Big Show doesn't come out flat because it's you can just end on my God, he body slammed Viscera like it was nothing. You know what I mean? Everyone gets their little piece of the pie.
Backstage, Shane is on the phone with, eventually we learn, Vince. He said he called McDivitt, which I thought was a nice touch, who is their actual lawyer. Yeah. And he's on the way, and he says he's happy to relay a message. Back at the arena, Dominic Hasek of the Buffalo Sabres is in the audience.
Dominic Hasek.
Hasek.
Yeah.
I love the Sabres logo of that time. It was very new metal before they went back to this current logo.
Yeah. I like the old logo, but I did like the new one, but I didn't like that they changed the colors. I hate when fucking teams change the colors. What the fuck?
Agreed.
Why would you change your colors? And then, of course, they had an alternative jersey that, if you can look it up, called the Banana Slug, which was just fucking awful, which is one of the worst jerseys of all time. It's this weird yellow,
oh yeah, they were terrible.
Yeah, it's just fucking awful. And then they finally go back to the whatever. But that was fun. Meeting Dominic Hasek, just okay, you're gonna be here, whatever. Then he won the title with the fucking Red Wings.
Triple H comes out, big heat. Crowd hates him. You're doing your job here. And he says he knows who ran over Austin, and he has the footage to prove it. JR is like, what? What's going on? And he actually shows the footage from earlier tonight, because it's Vince in this car, and look how comfortable Vince looks behind the wheel of a car running somebody over. This is clearly enough proof you need. Case closed. It was Vince.
Yeah.
And then we hear the No Chance in Hell music, and we think, wait a minute, is Vince in the arena? No, it's Shane. Shane says, first of all, he just talked to Vince, and Vince accepts the challenge, and he will face you at Armageddon, which is now the main event. And Triple H fakes being scared, oh, he's going to get me. Oh, he's going to get me. And then Shane reveals that Triple H tonight is going to be in a handicap match against the Acolytes. And now Triple H is really scared. He's not playing scared. He sells it. The Acolytes are actually a team to be afraid of. I thought this did wonders for rebuilding the Acolytes here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember there was some stuff that didn't happen. We were gonna maybe do something from the jail cell where he was, I don't know, he booked the match from the cell. Instead, it ended up being he just told me to. I think he was gonna use his one phone call to, it got convoluted. It changed. It's my one phone call isn't to my lawyer, it's to book the match somehow. But it just got convoluted. It wasn't the idea being oh, he's he's booking a match from jail, or who's
Yeah, when he got thrown into the cell, they took away his belt. Like, for what? And so you don't hang yourself. It's like, I won't hang myself. Yeah, right.
yeah.
So this whole segment ends with a huge brawl where Test comes out, the Stooges, eventually the Hardys and the Acolytes also come out, outnumber DX. The first time we see DX outnumbered, they're clearly making too many enemies. Backstage, we learn that Billy Gunn got his knee injured in the melee and will not be able to perform tonight. Val Venus and British Bulldog against Too Cool. It's like, what the hell is this match? What's going on here? But it serves quite a purpose.
Yeah.
Venus very quickly ditches the Bulldog because obviously they're not friends. They've been kind of setting up a feud here. And the Mean Street Posse comes out to help the Bulldog, and Too Cool are outnumbered. And who should save Too Cool than the debuting Rikishi, who I want to say likely debuted on Sunday Night Heat the night before, facing one of the Posse members, which is the string that connects this.
Right.
So he comes out to destroy the Posse. And in this one fight thing, you introduce Rikishi, you get over all of his power moves, which are like the earthquake drop, the bonsai drop, and the he does like a Michinoku driver, I guess, as his finisher. And they're like, whoa, who is this big dude with these power moves? And the crowd doesn't know how to react to him. They react to the moves. But then the biggest reaction is as he's about to leave, Too Cool stop him. And they're like, no, bro, you can't leave. We got to dance. And Rikishi, being the veteran that he is, stops to look around to ask the crowd, should I dance?
Yeah.
And all that does is like really build up, like, yeah, we want you to dance. And then when he dances, it was like the moon landing. It was the loudest pop of the match. And already it's over in one shot.
And sometimes that's like you say, the pop will dictate the future of something. And so, obviously he had respect of everyone. Like, it's massive. Yes. He was part of the what was he part of the Samoan SWAT team before, and he had been in different incarnations. The head shrink, so, and he just was massive and athletic, and so it's like everyone knew who he was, and like, oh, there's a new player in here, for the title and what have you.
You could really say he made a difference.
That
was another one of his gimmicks.
Yeah, but this thing almost like sidetracked his thing, like Rikishi is coming out, and it just like you said, got such a huge pop. And then I know he was personally into it, like, yeah, I'd dance for a while, and then things can go their more serious route. But he was meant to be brought in as a heavy, and this just took a left turn, really based on exactly what you just saw, like that huge pop, just like incredible. And it's like, whoa, we got to do more of that. And then that was that.
Yeah. And I'm interested to see how it progresses in the next few weeks too, because this is going to be the most overact in the company in a few weeks.
Yeah. Yeah. It's unbelievable. An embarrassment of riches. Like, more shit just kept getting over. Like, fuck.
Now we have, since Gunn is injured, it's Test versus Road Dogg, and Shane reveals he's going to be the special guest ref. And the match goes back and forth, and Road Dogg seemingly has the advantage. He's doing his juke, juck, and jive punch gimmick, and Shane hooks Road Dogg on the last punch to allow Test to grab him for the pump handle slam. He even mocks Road Dogg's doggy style thrusting before finishing off the Road Dogg for the pin. This is interesting. You're giving the faces some heat back this episode. It seems like.
Yeah, and it's a time-honored tradition. When a heel's so bad, baby faces use heel tactics.
Right. That's true.
Hulk Hogan did it all the time.
Yeah, like the heel is outnumbered here. This is a rare scenario.
Yeah.
I love this segment. It's Bossman and Albert against Rock and a mystery partner of his choosing. Throughout the night, Jim Ross makes it clear that a lot of the roster is preoccupied. There isn't really anyone around who hasn't wrestled yet. And so the idea being like, who the hell is the Rock going to find? And so Rock comes out. First of all, Bossman and Albert come out, and Bossman brags about being the #1 contender. And I'm very impressed with how much heel he, like, everyone knows to hate Boss Man. Like, he did his job.
Yeah.
I thought it was very impressive. Rock comes out. Everyone wants to know who his partner is. He grabs the mic. Rock says he doesn't trust anyone backstage. The only person he trusts is the people. So The Rock will pick the people as his special partner. And he promises a rock bottom and a people's elbow. The match starts. The Rock is in the lead, so to speak, at first, but the number game, it gets too much for him, and he just can't face two guys at once, and he's being beaten down. We see Al Snow and Mankind watching the match backstage, and finally Mankind just couldn't watch anymore. He couldn't help it. He had to run down and help The Rock. It's the reunion of Rock and Sock that we all wanted to see, and eventually Rock gets the best of Albert, gets a hot tag. Crowd goes crazy as Mankind does the big build up, and eventually we see a rock bottom on Albert for the victory.
Yeah, this was good. This was one of those things where, like, well, should be a Rock and Sock reunion, but and it was smart. I can't remember exactly how it evolved, but either The Rock himself, some like, well, The Rock is never someone to be like, I'm going to be sentimental and want this whole thing. You know what I mean? It can happen, but even like their whole relationship, The Rock is never like, he's always dismissive of the relationship, and it always works in spite of, this guy, The Rock's never going to be, you know what, I do. That'll never happen. And that tension is always like works. Well, one pandering for the other's love, if you will. And the other one, what?
Vince is released from jail. He's told not to go back to the arena, which we know he'll definitely
McDevitt will take care of it.
And we have Triple H versus the Acolytes. Triple H very hesitant. He's not looking forward to this match. We learned DX is banned from ringside, or they'll be suspended and fined. So they're not coming out. And it's essentially just a 2-on-1 beatdown. They fucking destroy Triple H. He gets a little bit of offense in. Punch kick all over the arena. Crowd is into it. Eventually, Triple H runs away from. They keep teasing a spot off the stage, but they don't do it. And then eventually, Triple H runs away from the Acolytes, and he's back on the stage where they were teasing the spot. And who should come out from behind but Vince McMahon with a big chair shot to Triple H. Triple H is wobbly. Vince chucks him off the stage. JR is blowing a gasket. He can't believe what just happened. And that's the end of we have no finish. That's the finish of the
You don't
the
mess
show.
with the McMahon family. That's what he says. Yeah. Triple H said that like William Dafoe in Platoon chair shot.
Oh, yeah. It was
it goes down to the knees. Like, yeah, so good. And if I remember correctly, I don't know, was this the debut of the Acolytes theme song?
Oh, I guess so. Yeah.
Which I always enjoyed. Yeah. That guitar.
Yeah, they had like that goth song right before this.
Yeah. And this, it's like, so it was like a siren guitar. Such a cool song. And then whenever, you'd hear them I'm like, oh God. Yeah. I remember, that this was the beginning of it. Like, yeah, they need their song. They need a better up, something, and he's so good at making those songs, the Austin, the glass breaking. This had the first, like alerting you that they're there, but good deal. Good piece of business.
So we brought up Austin. I wanted to quickly mention, as we're done with the episode, that in the Observer, in the November 29, 99 edition of the Observer, which covers the show, we learn that the planned storyline for throughout WrestleMania, according to Meltzer, is that at Royal Rumble, Austin was supposed to beat Triple H and then lose to The Rock at WrestleMania to give The Rock a much needed push as the top star. After everything came down, you made the attempt to put the title on Big Show, to create a new player and to give the fans something exciting since they weren't going to get Austin.
Yeah.
Do you have any recollection of such a...
Well, I have to bring up the same old answer, which is, that there are it's almost like being in the military. We're like, okay, what's the attack plan? Well, we got an attack plan for each. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
There's scenarios of like, that scenario is put out there. Also, the scenario of Austin winning is put out there. The scenario of Triple H retaining it is put out there. These things are all talked about because there isn't many things that it's like, well, we have that set in stone. Nothing's set in stone. So, and that's the way I think Vince liked to operate too. Like, how about this? How about that? And so a lot of people you wouldn't really know. And whether it's true or not isn't until the day of or the half week before that it's going to happen or not. So yeah, that exact scenario is put out there. But to say always that's planned and then like something happens and like, what do we do now? Everything's planned. You know what I mean? The virtue of everyone going babyface or heel is always talked about. You know what I mean? Hogan had the greatest heel turn of all time, in my opinion. But it wasn't like that wasn't periodically continuously talked about. Like, when should Hogan turn heel? Ooh, I don't know. That'd be good. Not now. You know what I mean? So all these things are talked about.
Even up to that day, like, are we doing it? Are we doing it?
Yeah. And sometimes there's that mistake of like, these are the plans for WrestleMania in this briefcase. Do not open the briefcase to look. This is it. Like, it's so modular. You know what I mean? Yeah. Everything can change. And often, sometimes people wouldn't even know, or things would change. You'd be like, oh, what? The day before, guess what? Vince would be disgusted by that.
Vince would be very upset.
Sneezing. I told you that one time he was on a plane and I hadn't been there but 3 or 4 weeks and he like sneezes and he's, damn it. And Stephanie calmly said, you're one of the few people to see Vince sneeze. It's like he wills away. Nothing makes him more angry than sneezing, because I guess one time she told me to, someone called in sick or something. Russo or something is sick. And Vince's reaction was like, sick? What is this word, sick? Sick. That was his reaction. I don't understand that word. And it's like, yep, it's true. There is no sick.
Well, one thing that is sick is our podcast.
Right.
It's sick.
That's a different kind of sick.
I want to thank you for listening. And please follow us on social media.
Please. Yeah.
EFT Attitude Era. That's the handle. And if you want to acquire, we're going to be doing a question and answer episode very, very soon. Mm-hmm. So if there's any pressing questions, and clearly you are a Western Heritage listener if you made it this far into the show and you're hearing this. So we want your question specifically. So email tftattitudeera@gmail.com. Tales from the Attitude Era.
Yes. And like always, a special shout out to our Western Heritage listeners.
Yes. We'll see you next week on Tales from the Attitude Era.